Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us in this lead space session titled How to Use Identity Resolution and Artificial Intelligence for Insights and Next Best Actions. Joining me is Ranjit Rao, our Lead Solutions Engineer. Good morning, Ranjit. And
Good morning.
I'm Felix Serna. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Lead Space. This is the third session or webinar in a series that we have been running on identity resolution. Just to recap the previous two, I was joined by uh, Cameron Poe and Amish Seth, both also in the solutions engineering organization at LeadSpace. Our agenda for today is going back and reviewing identity resolution in general, how we leverage identity resolution and artificial intelligence for marketing and sales insights, how insights inform our next best actions for both marketing and sales. Then we'll have a brief customer case study where Ranjit will detail actually a solution that his team has worked on for one of our very large customers. And then we will detail at the end how LeadSpace can help anyone that is interested in solving this business problem. And we'll have a question and answer session at the very end. Okay, so straight into it. What's identity resolution? Is finding your prospects and who they are, what company they work for, what roles, and who they are on their buying team once you construct the buying team. Are they prospects, are customers, or partners? And this that seems simple, in reality, gets really complicated when you're trying to do it across multiple databases, when you have a master data management solution involved in an enterprise, and when you're trying to unify first, second, and third party data and trying to decide which data is correct. Of course, slowly changing dimensions, like everything in databases, will be your enemy, and you will find problems with people moved, with data that is incomplete. Um, the average in the industry, the estimates are that 30 to 40% of B2B customer and prospect data um, gets damaged in the sense that it's no longer valid for targeting on a given year. So it's really a key driver for anything else that you build on top. We are talking here about using artificial intelligence for targeting and decision making, etc. As you know, artificial intelligence is dependent, fully dependent on having the right data. And when we talk about buying teams, moving on here, what we are talking about is the composition of the actual team that is involved in a decision at your target company. In B2B, when you're selling like selling to individuals, but you're selling to a group of people that it's responsible for making a decision. It may be that they are implementing a request for information, a request for proposal, even later on, where you have to propose a given solution for a business problem. And this is going to this spawns this position that you may have as a vendor to this prospect is going to influence the decision of the buying team. Um, you are going to have a consideration process where they are going to be considering different your competitors, hopefully, if they are targeting right, and making a consideration in terms of the case and the return, the potential return of that solution for that business problem. So the composition, you may have very different composition on that buying team. You have the actual users of the product, some decision makers and budget holders. This may be at the level of director or VP that at the line level, line management are responsible for the expense, for the cost that your solution may incur to them. You have executives, which are influential in terms of partnerships, brand, the type of budget, the timing, when it gets done, when it gets approved. And then you have procurement managers that are going to work on the T's and C's, infrastructure and IT advisors and evaluators that are going to make sure that a potential solution is up to the levels of quality and compliance that are required in your prospect account. The same thing with legal, compliance advisors and evaluators. They're all going to be considering the solution that you're trying to sell to them. And big hint, big secret in marketing from Felix as VP of marketing. The trick to be successful here is to interrupt consideration with relevance. You want to find out when the buying team is considering a solution, and then you want to interrupt that consideration with relevance, with relevant content that is going to differentiate your solution, that is going to make it notable, and require that they bring you in and participate in that potential RFI or RFP that will happen later. So, but you need to interrupt them, and to interrupt them with their consideration, you need to know who they are. Okay, let's move on. So we are going, as I mentioned again, in this series of 3 webinars, and this is the 3rd one in the series. Ranjit has been graciously helping us in putting it together. His organization or solutions engineering has been really working hard on putting together a set of implementation solutions for our customers that then we can detail here in these webinars, because they are innovative and they are really bringing value to them. Foresters, in the analyst organization, in their latest B2B CDP play, detailed the 3 top topics for improving audience creation and personalization, and again, being relevant in terms of consideration. The first one is real-time data unification and identity resolution. The second one is the support for buying groups, the buying groups that we just mentioned. And the third one is artificial intelligence leverage for insights journey mapping and next best action decision. And this is the area where we're going to focus on today a little bit more, and going deep in our description of solutions. So how do you build and execute this type of process on targeting and providing the best experience for your prospects and creating that relevance? The first step, again, is identity resolution and enrichment. And we have establishing the network, enriching identities with profiles and signals, and then unifying identities with first and third-party data. We had worked on that in the previous webinars, showing you the details on how that gets built. In the second step, we are really detailing the buying team and breaking it down, analyzing the different personas, adding the ones that you are missing. How do you do that with second and third party data? And then how do you use the signals that you gather in a step 1 in order to prioritize accounts and the teams to engage? Finally, you need to execute and maintain this. This is a living process. It's like security or data hygiene. It's not a product, it's a process that you have to live with. And here is execution across channel campaigns, then monitoring and analyzing the results and creating a feedback loop that gets you to be more relevant, to be more significant to your prospects, and then maintaining and optimizing their strategy. And now I wanted to ask Ranjit to continue, but he has disappeared from the screen.
I'm still here, Felix. I just put myself in the full presenter view.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Still see me.
So let's go into full
right, so
presenter. Let's go into full presenter, and then you can keep going.
All right, sounds good. So I'm going to jump to the next slide here. So first of all, thanks, Felix, for that intro and going through the first two steps. So now that we've augmented and unified all that existing data, and we've acquired the right context to fill in those buying teams, it's time to actually execute on all that data across all the key execution channels. And from my experience, I think the challenge that we see often is that a lot of organizations just don't have the right insights to be able to do that intelligently. And so not only that, but they also don't have a defined framework for how they actually want to execute upon that. And the framework's probably the biggest challenge in there. So let's dive in to start discussing how you can actually help solve some of those problems. So, as before, as we said, it can be really powerful to get insights like predictive fit scoring, where you're going to actually know which accounts have the highest fit and propensity to purchase based off their DNA resemblance to your best customers, as well as getting access to more dynamic signals like intent scoring, which tells you which accounts are potentially in market to buy this week. All very powerful insights. With that said, a lot of companies find themselves a bit overwhelmed with all the different cross signals between fit signals like predictive fit scoring, and you've got intent, and they have different scores from other engines, and they just don't really have a good plan for how they want to focus that limited budget on the best accounts. And so the framework that you're seeing here helps enables teams to really focus on the accounts with the highest propensity to buy, as you can see on the y-axis, that are also potentially in market to buy based on surging intent that week, represented by the last four columns in that table. So now you're ensuring that you're spending the most money and resources on things like in-person events for the A propensity to buy accounts that are also surging on intent the most that week, while you're still ensuring that the C and D accounts are exposed to awareness campaigns via digital and email channels. But now you're also optimizing your budget and spending the most on the best fit, accounts that are ready to buy right now. Now, this is just an example of the types of dashboards that we see a lot of our, customers and companies easily creating and leveraging directly in their systems of engagement, like Salesforce in this case. And this kind of dashboarding can really help ensure that your sales team is easily and efficiently focusing their outreach efforts on the accounts that are not only the most likely to purchase based on their fit, but also looking to purchase this week based on their intent. And if you're a sales rep now, if you click into an individual report from that same dashboard, now that rep can really ensure that they're focusing on the very best accounts in his or her particular territory or patch. So to be able to personalize and individualize this for every single sales rep as part of the organization, that's really key to making sure that this kind of framework scales across the wider team. Now, once you've established that framework for identifying your best accounts, you also want to ensure you're going after the right people in those accounts. You definitely don't want to find yourself in the position of having spent a ton of time and money generating a great ABM account list, but now you've got nothing to show for it because you were targeting the wrong people. And we see a lot of organizations that utilize behavioral engagement scoring metrics, and that's a solid start. That's tracked natively in systems of engagement like Marketo and Eloqua, Pardot, HubSpot, etc. So definitely a solid start to prioritizing your buyers. But it's also very easy to over-index on it. Oftentimes the people getting a high purely behavioral-based lead score are just people doing the initial research on your solution, and they're not the right kind of people who actually influence or make the decisions at the end of the day. So companies have to be able to hone in on the right types of people ultimately. And the personas really capture key fit signals, such as the titles, the levels, the departments, the job functions, the technology expertise. And so by using those persona scores in conjunction with the engagement scores, now you can really ensure your outreach is targeting out to the best fit contacts that are also engaging with your content the most. So you're weighing both of them appropriately as part of your outreach process. Now, once you've set up the right framework for the account prioritization and the buying committee outreach, the last thing that you're going to want, to do here is for your efforts to go by the wayside, because you weren't actually keeping track of the key metrics. And so this kind of standardized reporting that you see here, as an example, This can really help ensure that you measure the impact of that new motion on your business growth and your KPIs. And that's going to help you prove out the value of those changes to your key stakeholders and influencers within your organization. So really important to be able to measure everything as you move forward. And additionally, it's also important to have a strategic plan to refresh those profiles, models, and revisit the methodologies on a periodic basis. As I think Felix pointed out earlier, stale data can really undermine your organization's trust in the data or potentially lead to inaccurate insights and misguided decisions as well. And so by maintaining data freshness through automated processes, data quality tools, things like clear data governance strategies, now you can really ensure that your data is reliable and trusted throughout the entire organization. Moving on to an anonymized customer example here. This is a middleware integration platform as a service leader. Um, and I want to talk a little bit about how they managed to solve some really significant challenge by implementing a very successful predictive scoring solution across their global initiatives. Now, prior to utilizing this solution, the firm was really using the same approach to prioritize leads for sales and marketing across all their various different markets, segments, and geos. And that led to some really disappointing closed win rates and their inability to hit the revenue targets. They're using the same kind of motion and playbook for very different types of customers, very different types of markets. They really needed to be able to customize and tailor that to the individual market segment. But they weren't able to because they just didn't have the right insights and data available. So they started implementing custom predictive fit models that were really tailored to each individual region and market segment. And that not only significantly improved their closed won rates, but they also gained a much deeper insight into the types of companies and buyers that were their best potential customers at the end of the day. So that ability to curate models that are really going to be tailored to the types of buyers that exist in that market or the types of buyers that are going to be purchasing that kind of product or solution, that's the thing that you need to keep track of and just make sure that's key in your mind when you're looking at buying a predictive solution. It can't be something that's kind of standard and out of the box. You need to be able to make sure that it fits your particular go-to-market motion. So I'll go ahead and hand it back over to you, Felix, over here.
Okay, thank you. So um, the why I wanted to have, of course, to end this session today is by talking a little bit about how we can help at LeadSpace, and I will describe that in three major areas: in database health, and being able to provide the best data possible in the industry, given the way we built or master database with multiple source. We are not a single source vendor. We have more than 30 sources worldwide that we use to create, or using a Delphi method of comparing attribute by attribute. We are able to build that master database. We can help you create the ideal customer profile, again, using AI and ML, and then work with you with your total addressable market based on the data on your CRM, etc. So my offer to you is get a comprehensive data test from us, on us, and it just requires a very short conversation to start providing you value in terms of the perspective of what is possible to the data that we can provide and how we can help your data solutions across not only your customer database, but also your CRM, your marketing automation platforms, etc. And that's something that to just don't have to take my my word for it as a marketeer, but it's really something that we are really proud when we show, our classic logo slide, and we show the type of companies that have been trusting us and trust us today, and they are some of our key customers, right? And you can see the leaders in the technology and software industry, but also some other industries like manufacturing, automation, etc. So again, take us on that offer. And now, if you have any questions, you can always reach Ranjit or myself directly. Let's see if we have questions for the audience here. Change the layout to us again. So here's one. I'm gonna read the question. I'm gonna ask Ranjit to start the answer, and maybe I'll pitch into. Um, when you are selling complex solutions or multiple product types, can predictive lift work? Uh, you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, good.
Go ahead, Ranjit.
I'll go ahead and address that. It's a good question. I think it's one that prospective customers should be asking themselves before they buy a predictive model or predictive solution, because ultimately every company or organization sells to a very different kind of market, and a very different kind of customer base, right? So you do absolutely need to ensure that whichever predictive solution you buy is able to scale. So, if you're selling, an enterprise software product that has multiple different products and it's a really broad solution suite, it's very nuanced. You can't just go to market with one kind of predictive model, right? Because you've got a bunch of different um, opportunity conversion funnels that that you need to optimize for, and you've got different DNAs across the kinds of companies that are going to be able to potentially buy
Mm,
from you. So one of the things that we do at LeadSpace is we ensure that whenever we implement a predictive model for a customer, um, not only do we obviously build that, and we train, and we train a machine learning model against their against their actual opportunity conversion funnel, which is important, and we have a defined methodology for doing that. But we also want to make sure we take their subjective insight as part of that process too. So a lot of vendors are unfortunately a little bit black box, so you don't actually know how each kind of insight affects the score. And that gets challenging when you have a bunch of new markets that maybe you're selling into, or you're introducing new products because you're a quickly growing company.
yeah, when they don't have
Now
the
the old
information, they don't have the history of what happened, what's going to happen in that market, right?
Exactly.
That's
So
the
now all
challenge.
of a sudden that old historical model doesn't work as well, because, before maybe you were selling primarily to enterprise, and now you're going down market, focusing on mid market and SMB. So you need to be able to manually interfere with the model and fine tune it as needed and iterate. So that's one of the things that we absolutely focus on, here at LeadSpace, is ensuring that not only is every predictive model obviously curated for that specific product or market segment, but we also need to make sure it gets updated and iterated upon, as your customer life cycle goes on, because businesses aren't static. If you're doing well, you're going to be growing, and you're going to be introducing new products to market, and the models have to take advantage of that.
And now that I'm thinking about it, without revealing the name, that iPaaS middleware customer that you were referring to earlier was actually attacking a new set of markets, right? They were going from the US to Europe, and they came back to us, and we built new models for them to go in the new. They were not changing the products per se, but they were changing the way they were selling them, the channels they were using for them, etc. In Europe, in EMEA, let's call it EMEA, and they came back for more. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's thank you, Ranjit. Okay, one more. Uh, we know the titles of the people we are targeting. Okay, good. What is what is different or better when targeting personas and buying teams? Oh, titles. Yeah, that's a good question. Titles versus personas and buying teams. Let's see.
Yeah, for sure. And just as a bit of a recap, so when we, at lead space, when we define a persona is an encapsulation of hundreds or thousands of different signals. So it's not just things like titles that we map, but it's also levels, the departments, the job functions, technologies that kind of persona would have expertise using. So just kind of a quick recap on what a persona is. And our customers use that for not only segmenting their existing database, but also prioritizing, discovering net new, prospects in the white space. Now, it's true. We talked to a lot of companies before they use LeadSpace or any kind of third-party data solution, where they primarily work off the title, and that's for a few different reasons. One of which is that frankly, they're not able to map those titles to the appropriate level and department automatically. So one of the things at LeadSpace that we do as part of our enrichment process is we will automatically map any title, whether that's your existing first party title or a third party title that we provide. We have a semantic mapping out of the box for every single title to a levels department. But we'll also go one step further and we'll tell you what are the job functions behind that title. So if you think about someone with an IT manager title, if we're, frankly, that's a fairly generic title in 2024, just because there's so many different types of people in IT. You've got people who specialize in cloud computing versus DevOps versus IT security. There's no way something like IT manager is going to give you that granular insight into understanding, well, what kind of content is going to actually resonate the most, and what kind of conversation do we need to have? What kind of email do we need to put in front of that person to have the right conversation?
And
So
are they part of that buying team for the solution, or they're just adjacent in a different part of IT and not important? They don't care about what you are selling, right?
Exactly.
Because,
yeah, and worst case, you may put them off if you start talking about cloud computing and that that email thread, for example, and they're actually someone in IT security. They're going to think that you just don't know much about them, and then they're going to be less likely to engage with you. So those personas are really powerful because they capture very specific, not only titles, but also the job functions. So the job functions is where we can look at things like publicly available resume data, or what's there on their public LinkedIn profile in terms of the skills that they advertise about themselves. And so that's where we're able to see, hey, guess what? This person might just be IT manager in terms of title, but they specifically specialize in things like DevOps, and they've got expertise in, technologies like Kubernetes, as an example, things like that. That can really help you understand not only how to target that person better, but also now you can start filling out the buying team appropriately, because it's usually a bunch of different decision makers and influencers that make the decisions within these buy teams. So you may have someone who's an IT executive who makes the purchasing decision ultimately and signs on the dotted line, but you've got people influencing him all the way across IT management, IT security, IT operations, etc. So the personas really help you hone in on who those people are in a way that's something that's super fuzzy and generic, like a title just can't.
Wow, great answer there. Yeah, so it's about the precision, right? Because if you're not precise, again, going back to the original tenet, you can be relevant. You may be distracting or annoying or other things, but you are not going to be relevant. Thank you so much, Ranjit, for your time this morning. Thank you, those that are watching, for looking at us and considering us, right, as a solution. We can really help. Contact us, and we can have a conversation and do some data test totally on us that will open the door to finding solutions for your data issues. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.